Hi everyone, welcome back to Silver Hill. I am running out of light here and this is unscripted, but today I want to talk about regret and success in life. I'm speaking as someone in my 60s and who's had to deal with looking back over life and seeing things that I may have made mistakes on or poor choices that led to not so great outcomes. So we hear a lot. I think what's really inspiring me to say this is for you if you think you failed. Now I mean in an overall sense. I think it's good to fail because by failing we learn. But there's some things, if say by the time you're 60, 70, or 80 and you failed at them, chances are you're not going to get a second go around to make it right. So there are those things. But if you're anything like me, one of the things that I do feel inundated with all the time is this message that those that are financially successful are the truly successful. And I have 3 kids of my own who are young adults now, and I see the things that they're going through in life. I see, the choices they're making in relationships and jobs and careers, and for the most part, they're doing pretty good for what they've got, and for having me is such a bad example. Anyway, we're all good. We all have a good relationship, and I try not to pry into their lives unless they ask me something. But I do know that as I watch them go through their life and they rub shoulders with different kinds of people, have different kind of relationships, and I know that these can differ, but I do see it, and we probably went through this too. When you're young, you're told so much that there are certain things you need to do to succeed, and those things are, basically they come down to money, something that we created basically thousands of years ago, and it is not a real thing. Money is not a real thing. It only is something that represents real things sometimes. And it allows people who misuse money to rise to power. And usually if they misuse the money, they're going to misuse the power as well. To get to the point, as it's getting dark here, if you're the type of person that looks back on your life and you say, well, gee, I wish I had done this and I wish I had done that, and I wish I had more money in the bank, or a house and a cottage and whatever it was you wanted, or maybe it was to be something. Maybe you thought you wanted to be a doctor or an astronaut or whatever, a famous musician, and it just didn't get there. Well, look, regardless of what people tell you, you can't be anything you want. You can't end up being a brain surgeon at 70 years old. I mean, most likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but most likely, if you don't have the education, if you never went to medical school when you were young, if you have no experience, chances are you are not going to be a brain surgeon. So let's just forget about that. You can be whatever you want to be. And if you're born in a third world country and that's where you're stuck, or you're in an area stuck where it's kind of poor, a poor area, you can only sometimes go as far as you can go, especially if you have commitments. And this brings me to my second point, to such things as family. Now, whether or not you want it to, and maybe it was just, natural urges, animal instinct, that you ended up with a family, you, in my opinion, and many other people would agree with me, you've made a choice. If you made a family, you made a choice. Now, this video is not about bashing anyone for having relationships like marriages, or just relationships where they didn't work out and one had to leave the relationship and therefore it broke up and ended up in what would be a legal divorce or just a separation. Sometimes, and maybe we come from a world, I think we're growing away from that, is that years ago that was seen as a major failure. You were totally unsuccessful, and a lot of people stayed together, and I suspect some that I know very close, they stayed together just because of social pressure. And you know what? It probably would have been better for the kids if if they could have moved on. But you see, they didn't have options back there besides clergy and maybe some officials, or they didn't really have that many. I'm talking about, you know, boomers, pre-boomers, whatever. They didn't really have any professional counseling that they could go to and work out these issues in relationships. Okay, so here's what I want to say. What I want to say is, if you find yourself beating yourself up every day, but I should have did this and I should have did that, and you're seeing come up on your YouTube channel, you see it coming up on your suggestions of what to watch. I wish I wouldn't have did this in my life. I regret my life. Don't die with these regrets. You know what? I am the firm believer that we're all going to die with regret. I mean, it's there. It doesn't matter. You could be a billionaire and be on your deathbed, and you could have traveled and had a super yacht and had a beautiful spouse and children and a beautiful home. Starting to think I'm going to break into song here. But, you know, you are probably going to be on your deathbed having a regret of some type. Now, this is where I want to say that not all of the things in life that are considered successful today, when we turn on television, you have this brand new car that's being run by AI or it's self-driving or frig whatever else. Do you have the best smartphone, the best computer, whatever? Are you living in the best neighborhood? Well, you failed. Look at this. You need to buy this. You need to run up your credit card and go bankrupt just to achieve all these things that you were meant to achieve because you deserve them. But you hear very little about people who stick it out. And I'm just talking about people that they know they're meant to be together with someone, a certain person, and they may or may not have a family, but they know that they love that person and it's mutual and things are hard. And this video is for you. This video is to let you know that if you stuck it out, if you took the bad jobs, if you had to work too, hopefully you didn't, you know, and maybe you burnt your body out doing it, maybe whatever. But if you stuck together because you loved each other, because you were compatible, that's important too. You have to be somewhat compatible. Some people think that when they're in a room with someone, the true love is the one they feel all the fuzzy wuzzies for, or, ooh, I fell in love with that person, and just when I saw her walk in or him walk into the room. Yeah, that's true. That happens. But you know what else? If you can sit in a room and be quiet with that person and they don't drive you crazy, and you can just sit there and both do your thing, you know, not always. You got things you got to do and places you go and, you know, and meals you go have together if you can. You know what? That's success. That's success. You've achieved something. So before I go completely dark here on this here walk, I just want to tell you, if you stuck it out, if you tried your best, if you did what you could, if you have your family, if you put your family first above everything. I don't mean coercing them. I don't mean by forcing them to love you back or anything like that. But maybe you couldn't buy them the best of everything, but you were there for them. You went to work for them, you provided as best you could, but most importantly, you were there for them when they were little children, you know, into their adult years, and you hung on. And as much as they fought, you hung on. Because teenage years are terrible years, a lot of times for people. But anyways, that's a different subject. But this is just to let you know that if you're someone who looks out at the world and says, you know what, I haven't been that successful. I don't have that much stuff. I don't own any land. What did I achieve with my life? I'm going to die and be buried, and that's it. Well, you know, assuming that you don't know what's going to happen next after, if there is an afterlife or whatever. Personally, I don't think there is one. But anyways, that's another story. So this is for you. This is to let you know that maybe you should just kind of question some of those regrets you think you have right now. Maybe you should just take a breather, take a few breaths and say, you know, I did my damnedest. I loved them with all my heart, and I put everything I had into my family and helped those I could. And you know what? To me, that is a truer kind of success. It really is, because all those other things are fleeting. Everything, our bodies, we can have the perfect bodies. We can have a mate with the perfect body. Wow, yeah, wouldn't that be great? But you know what? in the end, we all get old. We all put on a few pounds. We get shorter. We get shriveled up. Even those old tattoos are going to shrivel up. But you know what? If you stuck together, if you love each other, and that's an important thing, you got to love each other and you got to know you're right for each other, and you looked after your family, you, my friend, are a success. Okay, that's it for today. My name is Kevin. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.